What's up, guys, and welcome to another first look at Planet Coaster Console Edition. In this video, we're going to be talking about all things facility related, but if you guys want to skip ahead to the next video where I talk about scenery, go ahead and click at that little card just over there. Now, it's no secret, you cannot have a theme park without a single facility. The guests are either A, going to need some food, B, going to need something to drink, and if they have those two, they're definitely going to need a bathroom, among other things. There are a plethora of different facilities to choose from, as you probably saw from the thumbnail. And throughout this video, I'm going to be talking about which facilities you absolutely need and which facilities you could probably get away with not ever using. So to start things off here, we're going to go ahead and use RB or LB to get to our facilities tab. Now, of course, we do have the blueprint facilities that you can place down wherever you want. They're going to come with a pre-built sort of building surrounding them. But if you want to create your own custom facility or even a custom facility group, like a mall or a food court or anything like that, you just click down on your right stick and it'll take you to this. Now, it's important to note, and it's something that I haven't talked about yet, but what this is going to do is actually bring you into the Create tab. As of recording this video, I haven't covered that yet. It will be after scenery, but for the time being, I can, of course, walk you guys through it just roughly. I still do need to have enough to talk about for the actual Create video. But as you can see here, we have a ton of different options of facilities to choose from. Now, how I would personally go about sort of separating all of these is to just simply click B. It'll take us over here to the left to this little category interface. So we have services, we have food shops, we have hotels and restaurants, drink shops, amusements, which would be like claw machines or any sort of really small attraction for your park. And then we have gift shops. Now, in my personal opinion, every single theme park you make should at least have a toilet, a food shop, as well as a drink stand of some sort. So let's go ahead and run through just a couple of these categories. So first one being services. This can be stuff like your first aid, your ATMs, your information booth, which I kind of talked about in another previous video. Information booths are extremely important in your parks, but only if you're using the priority pass entrance and exits for your queues. If you're not, you don't necessarily need it, but this is the only way guests are able to purchase the priority pass so that they can jump ahead of other people in those lines. You also have additional park entrance gates that you could use for the front. You can see right here, we currently only have one, but if we wanted to make this park entrance a little bit bigger, you could do 2, you could do 3, heck, you could probably do 4. You could actually do as many of these entrances as you want. Now, from my experience, the guests will use the shortest distance one away from them from this main entry point. But we could plop one down right here. We could also rotate it around using RB or LB and put another one right there. Now, I really don't think that the guests are going to use either of those, but they could, depending on which direction they're coming from. The next one you're definitely going to want to have in your parks is the staff building or a staff facility. What this is the place for your staff members to either just take a load off, just rest, unwind, or they can also learn more about their job to be more efficient. I will cover this building much more extensively in the staff video, but for the time being, I do think it's important we at least place one of those down. So we'll just drop it down right there. Location does not matter at this point. The next one we have here is actually a ticket booth. So if you wanted to, which I don't know why anyone would need to use this, I suppose there's probably a scenario where maybe your queue path isn't connecting to your standard path for whatever reason. Quite literally what this is the entrance to a queue. Again, no idea why you would need this, but it's there if you do for whatever reason. And lastly, we have the toilet block. This is exactly what you think it is, a block of toilets that the guests can use if they need to go to the bathroom, which they absolutely will. If we go into our park management, under the overview for our guests, you can see we have happiness, hunger, toilet, nausea, thirst, and energy. Now, I'm honestly a little bit surprised that the toilet percentage isn't a lot lower than it currently is. We don't have a single toilet in this entire park yet, and we have about 620 20 guests in the entire park. So I'm gonna go ahead and place that down over here next to the staff building just so that's out of the way. The first aid facility isn't technically necessary only if your park has very, very high levels of nausea. If your guests are feeling extremely sick or extremely nauseous, they will go to the first aid facility and get that sweet relief. I don't know if they just give them crackers or what they actually do there, but it will significantly lower your guests' nausea. And lastly, for services, we have the ATM. Now, I've talked about this before, but placing down an ATM is probably one of the greatest things that you can do for your park, due to the fact that guests will leave when they run out of money. Whereas if you have an ATM, instead of leaving, they can go to the ATM, grab more cash, and spend more time in the park. That's the most important thing you want to try to do in your parks, is make sure your guests not only spend all of their money, but also spend all of their time here. Moving on to food shops, this is exactly what you would expect. We have two different varieties here. We have these sort of building style food shops that are all different brands, and then we have the vending machines that are, again, all different brands. But vending machines are much cheaper in the long run, but they're not near as efficient as having a actual staff member man the counter of whatever food shop you're placing down. The same can be said about the drink stations. Let's go ahead and take a look at those really quick. So again, we have quite a few of these sort of stations that can be manned by a vendor staff member, and we only have a small handful of the vending machine variant of those. There's an initial price difference on these of about $100, but again, you want to take into account the fact that you're gonna have to pay the vendor that's manning the counter here. Whereas with a vending machine, all you have to worry about is having a mechanic that's going to be available to repair the machine when it breaks down. And they do break down quite frequently. Next, we have the gift shops. These are very similar to the food and drink stations, except for the fact that they don't have a vending machine variant. There always has to be a person behind the counter for these ones. We have Hats Fantastic, Just a Memento, and Looney Balloons. Of course, Looney Balloons, they not give out, but sell balloons. Just a Memento is more of that typical gift shop that you would find in any theme park. And then Hats Fantastic is hats. That's it. Now, to know whether or not your guests are going to want purchasable items that they can then take home with them, be sure to hop into the park management in the overview for the guests and just kind of cycle through the guests' thoughts. You can see 31% of our guests wish that the park had a drink shop, 25% wish it had a food shop, 12% wish the park had a toilet, which it does now, so that's why it's going down a little bit. But I haven't seen any thoughts about having a gift shop just yet. Now, if you add them in prematurely before the guests actually want one, typically it's gonna backfire and the guests are gonna be like, I'm not gonna spend money on that thing. So make sure you're keeping a close eye on this so you know exactly when the guests are going to want a gift shop from you. Moving on to amusements, the only amusement that I'm aware of is the crane claw machine, or the claw crane machine. This one's actually pretty cool. I do wish Planet Coaster had more of a variety for these sort of smaller attractions. I mean, it's very well done, don't get me wrong, but you can't change what toy they're gonna win or anything like that. It's always gonna be King Coaster stuffy that they're gonna pull out of here. You can adjust the odds of them actually winning something. As you can see right here, he has it in his claw. He's gonna go over and drop it, and boom. That is our first winner of the claw machines. And he's just pumped, just over the moon. Now, to adjust the chance of winning, it's as simple as clicking on the claw machine and you're able to adjust it right here on this little slider. So right now it's at 50%. If we want 100% probability that they're actually going to walk away with something, we can just bump this all the way up to 100%. If we want them to literally blow all of their money and never win anything, we can bump this down to 0%, and we can adjust the price accordingly. I've never messed around with adjusting the price, so I'm assuming $3.20 is what most guests are willing to pay. And the last category we have here is hotels and restaurants. Now, what you're able to do with these, say you want to build your own custom hotel. We'll get into the blueprints here in just a moment, but if you wanted to build your own custom hotel, you quite literally just need a foyer or a foyer, and then you have the choice between adding either luxury rooms or standard. hotel rooms. Similarly, if you want to build a restaurant, you just need a restaurant entrance and then the restaurant expansions. What that's going to do is allow you to have more seating in the restaurant. So for every expansion that you place down in a restaurant, that will basically give you about 10 seats. You can also choose the main course. You can add any sort of extras and drinks and things that you want to add to it. This is basically just a really fancy sort of combination of food and drink facilities. Now for the hotels, you can choose how much you want to charge for a standard room. You can also choose how much you want to charge for a luxury room. Now it's important when you are building a hotel that you select each little expansion that you've placed down relatively close to the hotel foyer. You can hit RB to confirm that selection, and now you can see over here we have one standard room and one luxury room. Your hotel will also have a prestige. Now I'm not 100% certain that the old divide by 35 trick is going to work for the hotel's prestige. By all means, you can absolutely try it, but if we take a look at the prices currently, it's looking like $10 and $12, and if we took its 262 prestige divided by 35, that would give us maybe a standard room price of $7.48. Maybe you could adjust it so that the luxury rooms are like $2 more. So with this one, you do have to kind of play around with it a little bit to know what the guests prefer for pricing. Something unique about the hotels is the perks tab right here. So you can add perks. You can add room service, restaurants, internet access, a spa, a gym, an arcade. These will end up costing you more per month, but it also greatly impacts the prestige of the hotel overall. So if I were to select just all of these, just because we can, you can see that setup cost, that's going to be $1,100 just to add those perks to this hotel. Monthly running cost shows 0, but I know after we do the initial setup cost, that should change. So now we have monthly running costs of $275. So if we're not collecting $275 per month from this hotel, it will essentially be no good. Actually, scratch that. I totally forgot that the rooms also have a running cost. So if we're not making $319 per month, then you might as well delete your hotel. Many guests are very unhappy. I wonder why. It's not like there's vomit all over. Unfortunately, since this isn't the staff video, I'm not going to be hiring a janitor to clean up vomit. So they're gonna have to suffer for a little while. But now we can move back to the facility blueprint tab. Now, as I mentioned, this is essentially the same type of buildings that we were placing down earlier, but they have either some scenery placed around them already or an entire building. For example, this festive claw crane machine just simply has some festive decorations put around it. Now, when doing this, this will help the attraction's scenery rating, which will make guests more inclined to spend their money on it. The same can be said about the stands that you would place down that a staff member would then man. So for example, we have the Fairy Tale Pip Shot Water. This comes highly decorated, and I can almost guarantee that it will greatly impact the scenery rating for this. So now, since we have that, let's do a little test. The facility we placed down is a highly decorated version of this Pip Shot Water. So what I'm going to do is place down just a random, regular old, unmodified Pip Shot Water. And what I want to take a look at is if I were to place these in roughly the same area, I want to see which one is going to perform better. So we'll place them both down right here. And now we're going to be able to see which one the guests prefer. It already looks like more people are heading to the highly decorated, better looking version of Pip Shot Water than they are going to the unmodified, totally blank slate Pip Shot Water. Now that's not to say if the line is full on the pretty version of it, that guests won't then go over to the unmodified, not so pretty version of it. So ultimately, when you're just starting the park, just placing down a bare bones version of whatever you want is totally fine. It will get the job done, but in the long run, you're gonna want a heavily modified, beautiful version of it. Also, not only just because it's visually pleasing to you as the player, but also the guests appreciate that so much more. But there are some really, really well done facilities that you can place down. This one's just a Chief Beef, but it's sort of this Riviera inspired building surrounding it. And then there's also this more default looking one that's kind of just gonna go along with any sort of theme that you're working with in your park. That's the other thing too, is that when you're just starting out in your park and you don't necessarily know which theme you want to go with yet. Do you want to do a pirate theme? Do you want to do a more modern theme? A good way to go about doing it is just to place down bare bones facilities at first, and then slowly over time, after you start to get a couple of rides placed in, you can get a better look at, okay, this facility should probably be this theme because it's in this area, and so on and so forth. But if you want a good in-between, you could also use this more, I would say, modern-looking facility. It's just supposed to be Planet Coaster themed rather than pirate or fairy tale or whatever else. There's also these really cool sci-fi looking blueprints. Now, I've never built a sci-fi themed park. To be honest, I don't really ever theme my parks. But even if you just want a little bit of inspiration on where your park's going to go, I'd recommend using some of these blueprints and just modifying them slightly so that it works better in whatever scenario you're working with. Unrelated to facilities, in the blueprints of the facilities, there's also big old proper entrances that you could drop into your park. You can see here it has 3 sort of entrance gates to the park. Nice big old sign saying Planet Coaster on it. And there's quite a few of these actually. There's even shop blocks, sort of like a mall or a food court type thing that you could place down, as well as restaurants and hotels even. And some of them are just way too cool. Like, I'd never ever in a million years be able to make something that looks this good. So if you're one of those people that's maybe creative, but you're having a hard time sort of putting your pen to the paper, just start with blueprints, and then you can adjust them and manipulate them into what your vision is. It's a good way to get started as well. On that note, I think we've covered just about everything there is to know about facilities. Once again, in the park management video, I did cover sort of the pricing structure that you might want to use in your parks for specific facilities. So if you haven't already, check that out. I highly recommend you go back and do so. But that is a wrap for the facilities video. So once again, if you guys did enjoy, please leave a like, leave a comment, help support the dream by smashing that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Peace.